Patience as a silent trap. What if the one virtue you've been taught to cherish, patience, is secretly holding you hostage? We're told from childhood that good things come to those who wait, that patience is the hallmark of wisdom, the key to success. But what if that's a lie? What if patience, cloaked in its noble guise, is sometimes a trap, a quiet thief, stealing your time, your dreams, your life? Imagine a man, let's call him David, sitting at his desk year after year, waiting for that promotion he was promised. His hair grays, his ambitions fade, and the world moves on without him. He's patient, they say, admirable. But is he thriving, or is he stuck, paralyzed by a virtue that's been weaponized against him? Patience feels like the right choice, doesn't it? It's the calm voice in your head urging you to hold on, to trust the process, to wait for justice, for love, for change. Yet there's a shadow to this virtue no one talks about. It's the shadow that keeps you in toxic relationships, hoping for transformation that never comes. It's the shadow that binds entire societies to oppressive systems, whispering promises of reform while decades slip away. What if patience isn't always your ally? What if it's a tool used by those in power, by systems, even by your own mind, to keep you waiting, to keep you still? Consider history for a moment. Think of the millions who waited for freedom under tyrannical regimes, told to be patient that change was coming. Or today, when we wait for governments to act on crises, for corporations to deliver on promises, for life to finally start. This documentary isn't about dismissing patience, it's about unmasking its darker side. Why do we wait, even when it hurts? How has patience been twisted into a mechanism of control, both in our minds and in the world around us? By the end of this journey, you'll see patience not just as a virtue, but as a force that can betray you if you don't question it. So let's pull back the curtain. Let's explore the hidden cost of waiting, from the psychological tricks that keep us tethered to hope, to the historical systems that thrive on our stillness, to the modern world that exploits our patience in ways we barely notice. Are you ready to rethink what you've been told? Because the clock is ticking, and the truth about patience might not wait for you. The historical lens, patience as a tool of control. Patience, we're told, is a virtue that transcends time, a universal truth etched into the fabric of human existence. But what if this revered quality has been wielded not as a gift, but as a chain? Throughout history, patience has often served as a tool for those in power to maintain control, to quiet dissent, to keep the restless still. Let's step back and peer into the past, where the promise of waiting has shaped societies, subdued revolutions, and kept the oppressed tethered to hope that was never meant to arrive. Consider the feudal systems of medieval Europe. Serfs toiled their entire lives, told to be patient, that their reward awaited in the afterlife or through the benevolence of their lords. The church, a towering force, preached patience as divine will, ensuring the masses remained obedient while the elite amassed wealth and power. Waiting wasn't just a suggestion, it was a doctrine, a way to pacify those who might otherwise rise up. Fast forward to the era of colonialism, where entire nations were told to wait for freedom, for justice, for their humanity to be recognized. In the American South, enslaved people were urged to endure, to wait for a promised emancipation that took centuries, while those in power profited from their suffering. Patience, in these contexts, wasn't a choice, it was a command. But it's not just distant history. Think of the 20th century, where authoritarian regimes mastered the art of dangling hope like a carrot on a stick. In Soviet Russia, citizens waited decades for the promised utopia of communism, standing in breadlines while propaganda assured them progress was near. In apartheid South Africa, the oppressed were told to wait for reform, to trust the system to eventually deliver equality. These weren't mere delays, they were deliberate strategies. Patience became a psychological cage, locking people into cycles of inaction, while those in control tightened their grip. Michel Foucault, the philosopher, once argued that power thrives not just through force, but through the subtle manipulation of time, making people wait, making them believe that waiting is noble. Even revolutions, those fiery bursts of defiance, have been tamed by patience. Take the civil rights movement. While brave activists pushed for change, moderates, often with good intentions, urged patience, counseling that equality would come in time. Martin Luther King Jr. famously rebuked this in his letter from Birmingham jail, warning that the call for patience was a tactic to delay justice, to preserve the status quo. Time, he said, is neutral. It can be used to heal or to harm. When patience is imposed, it often serves those who benefit from stagnation. This isn't to say patience never has value. It can be a strategy, a way to endure hardship with dignity. But history reveals a pattern. Those in power have long exploited our willingness to wait. They've sold patience as hope, as morality, while banking on our compliance. The question is, Why do we fall for it? Why do we accept the narrative that waiting is always righteous? The answer lies not just in history, but in our own minds, our psychology, our biases, our fears. As we move forward, we'll uncover how the human brain is wired to tolerate delays, even when they harm us, and how this vulnerability has been weaponized in ways both ancient and modern. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that patience, left unquestioned, can be a silent partner to oppression. The psychology of waiting. Why we endure. Why do we wait, even when it feels like the world is passing us by? Why do we cling to the hope that patience will pay off, even when the evidence suggests otherwise? The answer lies deep within our minds, in the intricate wiring of human psychology that makes us both resilient and vulnerable. Patience isn't just a choice, it's a behavior shaped by biology, conditioning, and the subtle manipulations of the world around us. To understand the dark side of patience, we must first unravel why we're so willing to endure, even when it costs us dearly. At its core, patience is tied to the human capacity for delayed gratification. In the 1960s, the Stanford marshmallow experiment revealed something profound. Children who could resist eating a marshmallow for a promised greater reward later showed stronger self-control, and years later, better life outcomes. This study cemented the idea that waiting is a virtue, a sign of discipline. But there's a catch. Our brains are wired to seek rewards, and when those rewards are delayed, we're susceptible to manipulation. The promise of later can keep us hooked, even when later never arrives. This is why people stay in unfulfilling jobs, waiting for a raise that's always next quarter, or in toxic relationships, hoping for change that's perpetually out of reach. Enter the sunk cost fallacy, a cognitive trap that makes us double down on waiting because we've already invested so much. Imagine Sarah, who spent years in a dead-end relationship, convinced that her patience will finally transform her partner. She's not just waiting, she's trapped by the time, energy, and emotion she's already poured in. The more we invest, the harder it is to walk away, even when the rational choice is to cut our losses. This isn't just personal, it's societal. Think of citizens who tolerate corrupt governments because they've waited so long for change that starting over feels impossible. Our brains betray us, whispering that we must keep waiting to justify what we've already endured. Then there's the role of hope, a double-edged sword. Hope fuels patience, but it can also blind us. Psychologists call this optimism bias, our tendency to overestimate the likelihood of positive outcomes. We wait because we believe things will get better, even when history or logic suggests otherwise. This is why people cling to promises from politicians, corporations, or even self-help gurus, all selling a future just out of reach. Marketers exploit this brilliantly, using tactics like limited-time offers or pre-order bonuses to make us wait eagerly, convinced the payoff will be worth it. But how often do we end up with buyer's remorse, wondering why we trusted the wait? The emotional toll of waiting is another layer. Chronic waiting, whether for a life-changing opportunity or a systemic shift, breeds anxiety, self-doubt, and even shame. When we wait too long, we start to question our worth. Are we not good enough to demand better now? Studies show that prolonged uncertainty can increase cortisol levels, trapping us in a cycle of stress and passivity. Yet we're conditioned to see this endurance as noble. Society praises the patient, the steadfast, while quietly ignoring the toll it takes. We're taught to suppress our instincts to act, to demand, to disrupt. This psychological vulnerability isn't accidental. It's exploited by those who benefit from our inaction. Employers who dangle promotions, governments that promise reforms, or even social media algorithms that keep us scrolling, waiting for the next dopamine hit. The human mind, for all its brilliance, is primed to wait, to hope, to endure. But at what cost? As we'll see next, this willingness to wait takes on new dimensions in our modern world, where the tension between instant gratification and enforced patience creates a paradox that traps us in ways our ancestors could never have imagined. The question isn't just why we wait, it's whether we can afford to keep doing so. The modern paradox, patience in a fast-paced world. We live in a world that moves at lightning speed, where instant gratification is just a click away, yet we're still told to be patient. This is the modern paradox, a society that demands we act fast, hustle relentlessly, and seize every opportunity while simultaneously chaining us to systems that thrive on our willingness to wait. Patience, once a quiet virtue, has become a battleground where our desires for immediacy clash with the realities of delay. How does this contradiction shape our lives? And who benefits when we choose to wait in a world that never slows down? Look around. Social media feeds bombard us with images of success, entrepreneurs launching startups overnight, influencers living curated lives, peers seemingly thriving. This creates a phenomenon psychologists call FOMO, the fear of missing out, which screams that we must act now or be left behind. Yet paradoxically, the same platforms train us to wait for likes, for validation, for the algorithm to boost our post. We're caught in a cycle, chasing instant rewards while tethered to systems that demand patience. Scroll through any app and you'll see the trap. The promise of connection or fame keeps us waiting, refreshing, hoping as hours slip away. The corporate world amplifies this tension. We're told to hustle, to grind, to outpace the competition, but the same companies dangle promotions or raises just out of reach. Work hard now, and you'll be rewarded later, they say. Yet how many employees wait years for recognition that never comes? The gig economy takes this further, with workers chasing the next job, the next rating, the next paycheck, all while platforms like Uber or Fiverr profit from their endless patience. The system thrives not on our action, but on our willingness to endure, to keep waiting for a better tomorrow. That's perpetually delayed. Politically, the paradox is even starker. We're urged to vote, to protest, to demand change. Yet systemic issues like climate change or economic inequality move at a glacial pace. Governments and corporations promise action, but deadlines shift, policies stall, and we're left waiting. Take climate change, decades of warnings, yet global emissions still rise. The call for patience, wait for new technology, wait for international agreements, often serves those who profit from inaction. Meanwhile, the urgency we feel clashes with the slow grind of bureaucracy, leaving us frustrated, powerless, yet still waiting. This paradox isn't accidental, it's engineered. Institutions, from tech giants to governments, benefit when we're caught between the pressure to act and the necessity to wait. Social media keeps us hooked, corporations maximize productivity, and political systems maintain stability, all by exploiting our patience. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han argues we live in a burnout society, where the demand for constant action exhausts us, making us more likely to wait passively for solutions. We're too tired to disrupt, too distracted to demand. But what does this do to us? The constant tension between speed and delay breeds anxiety, erodes trust, and fuels cynicism. We feel the weight of time slipping away, yet we're conditioned to believe waiting is the responsible choice. The modern world sells us two conflicting narratives: seize the day, but also bide your time. The result? A society of restless waiters, chasing instant gratification while trapped in systems that reward patience with stagnation. As we move forward, we'll uncover the true cost of this paradox, how unchecked patience can morph into something darker, something that doesn't just delay us, but paralyzes us. Because in a world that moves this fast, waiting isn't just a choice, it's a risk. And the question remains, are we waiting for progress, or are we being played by those who know we'll keep waiting? The dark side, unveiled, when patience becomes paralysis. We've been taught to see patience as a beacon of strength, a quiet resolve that carries us through life's uncertainties. But what happens when patience stops being a virtue and becomes a prison? When does waiting cross the line from hope to paralysis, locking us in cycles of inaction that erode our potential, our agency, and our very sense of self? This is the dark side of patience no one talks about. The moment it transforms from a choice into a trap, one that benefits those who thrive on our stillness while we pay the price. Consider Anna, a woman who stays in an abusive relationship, convinced that her partner will change. She waits year after year, holding on to fleeting moments of kindness, believing her patience will be rewarded. But each day she waits, her confidence erodes, her dreams shrink, and her life slips further from her grasp. Anna's story isn't unique. It's echoed in countless lives where patience becomes a justification for enduring the intolerable. The cost isn't just emotional, it's existential. Waiting too long can make us question our worth, our right to demand better, until we're left as shadows of who we could have been. This paralysis isn't limited to personal struggles. Societies, too, can be lulled into inaction by the promise of patience. Look at nations under corrupt regimes, where citizens are told to wait for reform, for justice, for a better tomorrow. In Venezuela, for instance, people have waited decades for economic recovery, clinging to promises while hyperinflation and scarcity grind their lives to dust. The longer they wait, the more normalized the suffering becomes, until dissent feels futile. Patience, in these cases, isn't hope, it's a sedative, dulling the urge to act, to resist, to reclaim power. Philosophically, this is where patience betrays us most. Albert Camus spoke of the absurd, the tension between our desire for meaning and the world's indifference. Patience, when stretched too far, becomes an absurd act, a surrender to forces that don't care about our waiting. Friedrich Nietzsche might have called it a betrayal of our will to power, the drive to shape our own destiny. When we wait endlessly, we hand over our agency to others, to bosses who dangle promotions, to systems that promise change, to narratives that tell us our time will come. But what if it doesn't? What if the act of waiting is exactly what those in power count on? The psychological toll is staggering. Studies show that prolonged waiting, especially under uncertainty, increases stress and diminishes self-efficacy, the belief in our ability to act. When we wait too long, we internalize failure, blaming ourselves for outcomes we never controlled. This is why people stay in dead-end jobs, why communities tolerate systemic injustice, why entire generations wait for a future that never arrives. Patience, sold as resilience, can become a cycle of self-sabotage, where the longer we wait, the harder it is to break free. And who benefits from this paralysis? Those who hold the reins. Corporations profit when workers wait patiently for better conditions. Governments maintain stability when citizens wait for promised reforms. Even in our personal lives, those who exploit our patience, whether manipulators or broken systems, thrive because we hesitate to disrupt. The dark side of patience is that it often serves the powerful, not the patient. It's a subtle form of control, one we rarely notice until the cost becomes unbearable. As we near the end of this journey, we're left with a question. When does patience stop serving us and start serving those who benefit from our inaction? The line between waiting and paralysis is thin, and crossing it can cost us everything: our time, our potential, our freedom. But there's hope yet. By recognizing this trap, we can begin to reclaim our agency, to decide when to wait and when to act. Because if patience can be a prison, then breaking free starts with questioning why we're waiting at all. The resolution: reclaiming agency over time. We've seen how patience, though often praised, can become a silent trap, a tool of control, a psychological burden, and even a form of paralysis. But if patience can betray us, it can also be reclaimed, not as blind endurance, but as a deliberate choice, a tool we wield rather than one wielded against us. The question now is, how do we break free from the cycle of waiting and take back control of our time, our lives, our future? This isn't about abandoning patience altogether. It's about knowing when to wait and when to act, about refusing to let our lives be dictated by promises that never materialize. The first step is awareness. Recognize when patience serves you and when it serves someone else. Are you waiting for a promotion because you trust the process, or because you're afraid to demand what you deserve? Are you enduring a broken system, whether a relationship or a government, because you believe change is coming, or because you've been conditioned to stay still? The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once said that life can only be understood backward but must be lived forward. Reflect on your waiting. Is it moving you toward a goal or keeping you stuck? Awareness is the spark that ignites action. Next, set boundaries on your patience. Productive waiting, like pursuing a long-term goal, requires clear timelines and measurable progress. If you're waiting for a career breakthrough, define what success looks like and when you'll walk away if it doesn't happen. If you're hoping for societal change, support movements that demand it now, not later. Boundaries protect your time, a resource more precious than any promise. They remind you that patience isn't infinite. It's a contract you sign with yourself, not an obligation to others. Embrace calculated risks. The fear of acting too soon often keeps us waiting too long. But what if the real risk is inaction? History shows that change, personal or collective, comes from those who refuse to wait. Rosa Parks didn't wait for the right time to challenge segregation. She acted, and the world shifted. You don't need to start a revolution, but you can start a conversation, leave a toxic situation, or demand accountability. Action doesn't mean recklessness. It means trusting your instinct to move when patience stops serving you. Finally, reframe time as your own. The world will always ask you to wait, for permission, for validation, for a better tomorrow. But time isn't something you borrow, it's yours to claim. Every moment you spend waiting is a moment you could spend building, creating, or fighting for what matters. Patience can be a strength, but only when it's active, not passive. Choose when to wait and choose when to act. That choice is your power. So where does this leave us? With a question that lingers. Are you waiting because you believe in the promise, or because you've been taught to accept delay? The dark side of patience is real, but so is your ability to break free. Reclaim your time, question the promises you've been sold, and decide for yourself what's worth waiting for. Because in the end, the life you're waiting for is the one you're living right now.